concerned are you about Epicenter dealing with heat when it's like 90+ degrees Fahrenheit?
As concerned as you can be if you've never dealt with it or performed under it being that warm. I mean, it's just getting to that time of year. But it will also let us know how they'll handle it going forward, since it won't be the last time that they're faced with it.
Did he gallop this morning?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Steve, you said before the Derby that you would be surprised if he got beat. How do you feel going into this race?
Well, be careful what you say, because you never know where it comes from. You know, it was, you know, I believe the longest shot on the board that actually won the race, so can't count anybody out.
Steve, I know you focus on your horse. What was your reaction when the Derby winner dropped out of the field?
I guess it's honestly a little bit of disappointment. I wanted another shot at it, maybe just me being ignorant, but I mean, you're here to compete, and I'm sure that they'll meet up again down the road, hopefully, you know, because both of them are, you know, obviously big, strong, sound horses.
How do you handle the mindset of thinking maybe your horse is the best in the field, again, the favorite, but also the knowing what happened 2 weeks ago? Like, how do you kind of handle that during the week and your confidence level?
The same way you do everything else. You handle what you have control over and put yourself in the best position possible and try to eliminate as many variables that could get in the way of that. I think the variable that we're not sure of is if it's actually, you know, 95, 96 degrees here, and we know that it can be pretty sticky when it gets warm in Baltimore. So I think that all of them are going to have to deal with that. But he's a big horse coming off turning back in 14 days. So, you know, just make sure he's drinking plenty of water and hydrated, just like your kids.
What did you see from him this morning on the racetrack?
I think that's the thing about Epicenter. What'd you see? More of the same. You know, he's been beautifully consistent in his training. I thought that was remarkable in its you know, in leading up to the Derby, how consistent he looked the week out as he did a month out.
This has been a great place in your career. I mean, when you think back to the 2007, 2009, what are the memories that maybe stand out?
Well, absolutely. You mentioned it there. Here at Pimlico, Curlin's Preakness victory over the Derby winner was such a great race that day, and you know, the photo finish, and just it's the moment where when they put his number up. You thought he won when they went under the wire, but until they put the numbers up, we've all, you know, been mistaken about photos in the past. But that was an extremely special and monumental in our, you know, professional career.
And then what about the Rachel week?
You know, Rachel is, it's separate from everything else. I've been involved with great horses, but the experience with Rachel was when you walked out of the barn, you never felt that percentage of people truly, honestly rooting for one horse. It was Rachel against everybody, and I mean, and everybody seemed to be on Rachel's side, and we were along for the ride. You know, I mean, that was a wonderful, unique experience to be a part of.
What is it about the Preakness and fillies?
Probably they're tougher than they get credit for, and just the resilience that got them there to begin with. You know, and you know, Wayne and that filly, and just how unique that situation and how special that situation is. You know, Wayne, his tender age, you know, it's a beautiful thing and a great story, and she's. I think we've all known it and said it. You know, what horses can do for you that you can't do for yourself.
Wayne said yesterday that he apologized to you for taking his horse out of the Derby.
Right? Yeah. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of like Godzilla stepping on mice. You know, if he just quit missing his feet, I could get around it, right? You know, but you know, Wayne's a very special person in horse racing and beyond iconic. You know, and everything that he is in his positive attitude and everything that he has accomplished and continues to do so, you know, so it's a lot to go up against, you know.
Do you see yourself training at 86 and still getting on the pony?
It's inspirational, and I hope to be. You know, I have a long-time connection with Wayne through my parents. You know, they're lifelong friends. Grew up knowing Wayne as my parents' friend, and you cannot believe how encouraging, how positive he is, how helpful he is to young people or anybody coming up consistently. Just nothing negative, all positive, all forward. You know, what are we going to do next? And I would far more impressive than him training at 86 and getting on the pony is his consistent attitude and how positive he's always been about horse racing.
Knowing he's still got more work to do, where does Epicenter rank with some of the other great horses you've had?
You know, that comes into question, and it did leading into the Derby, but how they finish their career is what defines them. And, you know, hopefully and expectedly, Epicenter is just in the middle of his career.
When you chose the Louisiana Derby, does that help ultimately to make the Preakness available to you? You know, that you're not as hesitant about the 2-week turnaround?
I really, you know, yes, I do. Because of the consistency of the program, staying in one place, you know, throwing a lot of variables out as far as travel over a period of time, and the foundation that you're allowed to create because of the surface there, because of the weather, I think puts you in a physical, mental position that he's acting the way that he is off of a very tough circumstances of the Derby. And I think that it's very vital to getting here in this physical and mental shape, yes.
Steve, in his 7-race career, he's run races on only Churchill Downs and Fairgrounds. Do you see anything, the way he's acting or handling the track here at Pimlico, that might be different?
I like how he settled in, you know, how he looked over the racetrack. I thought that that's what we were concerned of coming in here, because of the fact that he'd been at Churchill and he'd been at the Fairgrounds, and it was basically he was at home when he ran in all of his previous races. You know, this will be new as far as running, but from what we've seen on the 2 days he's been on the racetrack, and his demeanor in the stall has been consistent. His appetite has been the same. You know, he's cleaned up. He's been very relaxed going to the track. He's looked very lively on the racetrack, and he's cooled out very comfortably. So I think he's settled in extremely well, but that is a variable that we were concerned about coming in.
How does having the Derby winner here change the mood?
I think that you guys would have a way better line on that than I do. You know, with us, we're concerned about the things we have control over, you know, the condition of our horse and getting another top-level performance out of them. I think, you know, from this year's results in the Derby, you won't take anybody for granted, and you'll consistently try to cover your bases as far as being prepared for everything.
Speaking of covering your bases and being prepared for everything, will he school between the races and this
He schools
afternoon?
in the 5th race today.
And then will he go to the school in the gate tomorrow
Tomorrow
morning?
he will. Tomorrow he will.
Did you have some disbelief after the Derby, the way we did?
Well, I don't think disbelief. You know, I didn't see it coming, you know, but I mean, if you're standing there, you witnessed it. You knew you were awake for it, you know, and you had plenty of witnesses to it. It happened, you know, so.
But I guess you're saying, how did it happen, you know, on our end?
I guess, yeah, that's what I mean. I think that I've heard or read or whatever the comparisons to Mind That Bird and how shocking it was. And then people remember how well Mind That Bird ran here in the Preakness right off of it. I mean, that horse is at that level right now, you know, and that's the truth of it. Other horse, you know, you're going into the Derby, and the reality of it is some of them have great resumes getting there, but they can be over the top and they don't recreate it. Whereas he is obviously on a trajectory that is up and is that fast right now.
Steve, when Epicenter made his debut, went off at 13-1, which is kind of rare for any first time.
Right.
You know, you're going to get some action just based on your history. And then after that race, you know, he didn't perform well, and you gave him just a little time off.
Well,
was there something in that race that you had to change, or just maturity?
Churchill was closed last summer for the renovation of the turf course,
Right.
and we had moved those horses in that stable to Turfway. And his preparation on synthetic, not only his, several of the horses that I ran who's early in the September meet at Churchill, where we were training on the synthetic at Turfway, got extremely tired. They just, you know, and they moved to Churchill, had one light little breeze over it and ran, and several, not just him, during that little span were short horses, you know. But he came out of it well and also stretched out in distance, slowed the pace down. But it was fatigue from something he hadn't experienced previously.
So was that possibly anticipated before he ran the race? You just wanted to get the race in him, maybe?
No, it was opening week.
Oh, okay.
With knowing that he had knowing he had talent, how tired he got, we weren't getting his. He was one of several from that couple of days that it was quite obvious what had happened and how he maneuvered, and happy with everything but the last 3/4 of the way, plain and simple.
Where would you like to see him in the race as they go to that first turn?
In front at the wire. I'm not going to worry about it. All right, we handled everything else last time. How about we just worry about the wire? Okay.
In that regard, to be at the wire first, what are some of the variables that, I mean, the keys
Being
to
faster
him?
than they are. Handling the circumstances and being the fastest horse in the race.
And you said earlier you're interested to see early voting because he is a
Why? Because he's a gun runner. I mean, I can't be a bigger fan of the gun runner than I am. And just fun to compete against him and hope he's a great horse, like many of the gun runners are.
You didn't run gun runner in the Preakness.
No.
So obviously you did Curlin, and obviously you are this horse. Was there something about the type of horse gun runner was that you?
Well, I think his end of his career proved who he was. That he was in a physical development stage.
You got a Curlin in here too. You ever seen Fenwick yet?
Yeah, I used to have Fenwick. He's a beautiful horse. He gets away from the gates cleanly. He's very fast.